Good morning. Going to switch this off music today. I thought I would go back to music. Just going to turn it off, just in case it comes back at some moment when I don't want it to. But we're on our last summer reflection, the last in the series today. I hope you've been with us and following the others. But today we come to this important one. It's the ending of it, and it's kind of the title's Consider Jesus. I'm going to just read to you a verse. I wrote it on the back of these short notes. Consider Jesus, who endured such hostility against himself, so that you won't grow weary and lose heart. Yeah, if you look back over the last few weeks that we've been together, we've been thinking of what the Bible tells us about considering what we should be considering. We started off with looking at asking questions, being real. We thought about Solomon and how he looked at the world around him and questioned and asked about the meaning of life. We then, on that first week, looked at a film that I saw, The Whale, but I won't go into that. And we also looked at the Alcoholics Anonymous steps, and our talks really are based a little bit around these steps, which they kind of like led me. If you can remember, we started off with step one from the Alcoholics Anonymous. I couldn't say it last time either very well, could I? Alcoholics Anonymous. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Yet we kind of thought that we might not be controlled by alcohol, but that we were controlled by what the Bible calls sin, the wrong things we do and the things that we don't do, that in a sense we are powerless to be the kind of person that we would like to be and that we wish we were. And then we went on to consider the step 2 of the Alcoholics Anonymous. Which is come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I'd like to kind of rephrase that in a more Christian way, but I think it's the basis of what this step is saying. And it's saying, come to believe that a power greater than us can save us, that can help us, to live the kind of life that we want to live and be the kind of people that we want to be and be free. But let's go on to a step further. Then we looked at how we come to know this greater power and asked ourselves if we do know this greater power in our life, and we looked at the words about consider the birds of the air and the lilies of the field, and we looked at God in creation, the stars and the sky, and we kind of like thought about that, and basically we're kind of saying, yeah, we can believe in this greater power that we need to save us, what that Alcoholics Anonymous step 2 is all about. And then last week we focused in on birds and flowers and how God says that even the hairs of our head are numbered. And we thought, how wonderful is this, that God is not just a supernatural power that just set the world up and then left it all, but to run its own course, but that he cares, and he cares about what we do to his world as well. And we thought about that, how that we should be living responsibly. But now we come on to how we can know God even more, and how we can know God by considering Jesus. As we go on through the verses this morning, the couple of verses I'm going to share with you, I'm sure that I hope that we'll come to see a little bit clearer how what Jesus says we can trust and we can believe. I'm going to just read from the next one in next step, because we're going to finish up with the third step from Alcoholics Anonymous. which is make a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understand him. Alcoholics, Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm sorry, perhaps this was a bit of a mistake using this subject. It's a bit of a tongue twister. But it's very much focused on the response of the alcoholic, the response that we need to make. But in our studies, we need to focus a little bit more on what God's role in it is. It doesn't ask much about who God is because it's written for people of different faiths, but it says God, how we understand him. And I believe that we can come to understand God through Jesus. We are going to start with where we ended up last week, which was a verse in St. John's Gospel. It was John chapter 14, where Jesus says, believe in God, believe also in me. He also says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. He openly says that we need to look and consider him. And as the verse said this morning, we need to consider what he endured. But before that, I'm going to just read a verse from this Living Bible that I've chosen, not because I particularly wanted to read this version, but because mine still needing new glasses and it's easier to see, and I prefer reading out of a Bible than just a printed sheet of paper. But we're reading just the first couple of verses in Hebrews. Long ago, God spoke in many different ways to our fathers through the prophets in vision, dreams, and even face to face, telling them little by little about his plans. But now in these days he has spoken to us through his Son, to whom he has given everything, and through whom he made the world and everything there is. God's Son shines out with God's glory, and all that God's Son is and does marks him as God. He regulates the universe by the mighty power of his command. He is the one who died to cleanse us and to clear our record of all sins. And then he sat down in the highest honor behind the great God of heaven. Yeah, this is the God that we understand as that higher power that can, in the words of AA, bring us back to sanity, or in the words of the Bible, to bring us salvation and save us. Let's just pause and think about that. Think about considering Jesus. Was he who he said he was? Can we trust the Bible? Can we believe these words that Paul wrote and John wrote? Well, if we can't just pick and choose. We can't just say, well, Jesus was a good person. He did lots of good things. He taught us to love one another, and he gave these commandments to love God and to love each other and to care for people, like in the Good Samaritan. It's not just that, because if Jesus was a truly good person and we can trust and believe these things he's saying, he wouldn't have been good if he'd been lying and making up all these claims about God, particularly back then when it was so blasphemous to suggest it. And I suggest even now he wouldn't have been making these claims. If we believe that he's a good person and a good teacher and that we can trust what he says, we've got to trust everything that he says. And there is lots of evidence for it, but I've only got a few moments, so I can't share with you everything. But he also showed by his actions that he was God. He didn't just speak it. I'm trying to think of the phrase where it says about talk the talk and walk the walk. He walked the walk. He lived that sinless life. He healed people. He did signs and miracles so that he could show that he can forgive sins and that he can cleanse us and give us this new start, the new start that people that go to AA are looking for, and that we, when we come to Jesus and come to God because we need help for whatever reason, that's what we're kind of like believing, that we're coming to a power. And then and that he died to save us. We don't understand it all. We don't understand very much at all, really, but we just know that when we commit our lives and we take that step of making a decision, because that's what the step 3 is that we're coming to today, making a decision, that then our life changes. The Holy Spirit comes to dwell within us and live within us, and all sorts of things that didn't make sense begin to make sense. And it's rather as if before then we're kind of on the outside, but then once we make that decision, we're no longer on the outside sort of looking in, but we're inside, and we can look out and see much more clearly. But I don't want to dwell too much on that. I want us to think about something else I shared, I think it was last week or the week before, of a verse, ask, seek, and knock. And knocking is kind of like an action, it's doing something. Well, so is asking and seeking, but it's sort of inside and it's more personal. But knocking means making a decision and making that kind of commitment. But just as in AA, people take time over these steps. We were told in this little talk that we had about the AA at the Christchurch that people spend as long as each step as they like and they're ready to go on to the next step. And I'm just hoping that maybe there is somebody watching or one or two of you watching. That's why I wanted to pray about this talk before I started, that really want to know Jesus and really ready to make that decision now. But that won't be everybody. There'd be others who are still searching and they still need to go and explore more before they're at that point. But there's also many more, probably nearly everybody I'm talking to that's already knows Jesus and already professes to be one of his followers. I was going to end with my story, but I think that's going to have to wait until the autumn or another time. But I want us just to reflect quietly for the few moments that we're together. Reflect over this series. Reflect about what we've been learning. I'd love to go through the whole of these AA steps because it's such a, it speaks so much about the journey of faith and becoming a Christian. But let's just have a moment just to think before I say goodbye and end the stream. Jesus, I just pray that you would reveal yourself in some way. Just as we read in Hebrews how you revealed yourself to people through dreams and visions and through face-to-face just appearing. And I just pray that even through this talk, through the words that are in Scripture, through thinking about the steps of AA, there will be those who are drawn closer to you. But I pray that everybody, whether they know you or not, that has listened to this series of reflections, has been taken a step further along on their journey. I just pray that you would strengthen us, keep us together as a community, this little group of come sit with me. I pray especially for those who are supporting me. I pray for those who are at home and finding it difficult to get out, and those who have been finding it hard the past few weeks. I pray that, Lord, through this summer, you would be with them in a very special way and that you would really bless them. And I just pray too for myself as I have my operation at the end of the week. And I commit that to you. And I thank you for the privilege of sharing your word and speaking to those who are with me on this channel. But yeah, I'm sorry it's a bit longer than I intended with these talks, but I realised when I was going into hospital that I had designed originally 6 talks, then I brought it down to 5, and then I condensed it down to 4. But as I condensed it, it was a little bit harder to make them as short as I wanted. But let's just pray that they've been an encouragement to you. And if they have, do let me know. Go to my Facebook page, Come Sit With Me, Reflections with Angela, and leave a comment if you're on Facebook. If not, I know that you can leave comments just on YouTube, so do leave a comment. Do let me know what you thought of these talks, and if today has especially helped you in some way and has brought you nearer to Jesus, or you've made that decision. I'd really love to know. Anyway, better say bye-bye. Bye. God bless.